With this video, I wanted to revisit some of the original revelations that I came across when I started to investigate the illegitimacy of organizations like NASA and everything that surrounds the military industrial complex involving big money moves. So, big money moves to war with generating false flags, creating false enemies, and big money moves like manipulating people to believe that they're sending people to the moon. And everything that comes with defending us from an alien invasion, an alien extraterrestrial enemy. Because they're running out of enemies here. They're running out of enemies, and they can always find an enemy. They can always generate a story, but a story or an enemy that's believable in the minds of the masses after having been subjected to so many unbelievable stories for so long. A story that people actually believe in reference to a new on earth enemy. People are having more difficulty believing the entire story. So it's not necessarily that they won't believe who they're going to attack because they need to for defense purposes or whatever. People will believe whatever they say because they create a system that makes you believe them. That's the intention there. That's what the school system is for. But what's being attacked these days and what's being unveiled these days is the system of belief itself. So to believe in this system is, in a sense, a separate entity from the stories that they want you to believe in. It's another level of control and manipulation. So after all these years of playing the same games, using the same tricks, telling the same stories, after all that, after all those generations believing and buying into these storylines, it has to come to an end. It has to come to a point where people eventually start to ask questions. They start to ask more questions about the issues more than they start to just blindly believe the issues. Back then, when they started the NASA lies and the storytelling at that time, they didn't have many information sources to regulate in comparison to what they have today. With the internet, with social media, with a lot of these libraries putting their information on digits, back then we just had encyclopedias. And you can still reference those encyclopedias that talk about the Earth not being a globe, the Earth being scientifically measured as a plane of existence. There's no curvature. So with more and more people waking up to the illusions, the system has to get to the masses of people before they switch from unveiling illusions to realizing truth, to seeing the reality. There's a sweet spot there to catch the majority of people. There's a timing. Just as they pass particular bills and legislature through Congress, get all their signatures that they need at certain times when other events are happening, it's the same thing. It's a timing issue. What I've said in previous videos about this situation is that the consciousness of the masses has to reach a certain point of awareness before the system makes any big moves. Big moves as in disclosure of extraterrestrial information, instituting a space force, possibly taking the side of the not heliocentric storyline, the flat earth, and trying to repackage and sell it back to the masses of people in a way that they can co-opt and profit from and remain in power. This is what I was saying was going on back in the day, like 8 years ago. This is what I was coming across just from my observations, from just saying, okay, well, what's going to happen based upon what we're unveiling and what the system has to account for. And so far, what I've said about the alien extraterrestrial disclosure and the timing of everything involving the distractions has pretty much been coming to fruition. What I was saying back then is either they're going to double down with the alien disclosure and hold on to the heliocentric universe, or they're going to adopt the not heliocentric models and repackage it and try to sell it back to the people. But what I said in that is that they wouldn't be gearing up for all this alien disclosure, extraterrestrial information. They wouldn't just let that go. If they jump straight into flat Earth, then they would have to let that go or tell that story in a different way. But they have to go in an order because they've invested so much time and energy into the alien extraterrestrial information, disclosure, whatever, all of it. It's been so long that they've been investing in that. So jumping to the universe is just overstepping what they could do to hold on to more power, hold on to more profit. And that's what I was also saying in previous videos, is that this is the whole point, is to steal your time, to go in order. They do this with your presidents. They give you a shitty Democrat, then they give you a shitty Republican, and then they say, we're going to get better with a better Democrat. And then he's just another shitty Democrat. And then they can expand it for 8 years like they did with Obama, in hope and hope and hope and hope. And then since you've been so tired and burnt out with a Democratic piece of shit, now they can just bring in whatever kind of piece of shit Republican, and people are just going to salivate over it because they want something new. And then they can just put more eyeballs on another group, which is this new version of Republican. They're calling themselves white nationalists. They're calling themselves whatever it is, the reinvented Republican figure out there now that is representing masculinity and genuine American values and all that other shit. Only in comparison to, just like a Republican in comparison to a Democrat, their values are in comparison to the Democratic values or lack thereof, with all the LGBTQ pushing and all the garbage nonsense that this woke, completely separated from reality Democratic mindset is out there now. They could sell anything. Anybody standing next to one of these woke Democrats looks like a god because they're so removed from reality, removed from anything at a baseline of healthy. But that's how they sell the program. That's how they sell whatever it is that they want you to believe in, and what they want you to watch, what they want you to invest your time and energy into, your belief systems. So standing next to the ridiculously absurd flat earth community that is so far removed from any kind of science, that has everything to do with nonsense and stupidity, standing next to them, they can sell you anything. So they sold you SpaceX, they sold you going to Mars, sending a sports car on the top of a rocket to fly in space to Mars. They sold the masses of people all that bullshit. In that same time that people were unveiling the fact that they're full of shit. That whole heliocentric system is just garbage. But people are so vested fully into that mindset, it doesn't matter what information or truth that you bring to the table, no matter how many different ways that you debunk their programs. It's not a matter of the information itself. If the system, if the way the individuals are calibrated to think for themselves, if that has been beat down into submission so deeply, you could present them with information, and you can have the information in your hand, in their faces, and they still wouldn't be able to process that information because you're basically speaking a different language. This is what happens when they take the ability to think critically for themselves from these children who now grow up into adults. When they take that from them, they're not only taking their ability to think for themselves, they're taking their ability to speak for themselves and their ability to even understand information. They're teaching them a language. The language is mind control. The language is a language of do not think for yourself. The language is we tell you how to think. We tell you what to think about. We tell you your reality. We tell you what the world and the universe is. We tell you what the news is, what history is. That is a language. Because if you say something that contradicts the information that comes from them, the way the individuals respond to that information, that language, is very similar, if not exactly the same, as if you were speaking English to somebody who speaks Portuguese and they have never heard English in their whole life. They've only spoke Portuguese. They don't know anything about English. You're speaking a different language, or Mandarin, and make it more difficult because that's how far removed the ability to think for yourself is from a language or something that is as complex as Mandarin is compared to English. You're speaking an alien language. And it's even deeper than speaking a different language, because what happens is that even if the individuals learn to speak that language, they still have another barrier to cross over, which is the ability to think for themselves. This is what happens when you present information and they just wash it over. They can't even see it. It's like you're speaking like the parents in the Peanuts cartoon, the womp 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 womp. You're just like not able to penetrate that guard that has been installed in the minds of these people. You can only go so far. So this language of manipulation, limitation, is where the system makes its money. It's where they focus their energy. Maintain the discipline, maintain ignorance, maintain even the desire to want to think for themselves. And they do that by embellishing, by lifting up, by celebrating that system so much. They celebrate that system with your Marvel movies. They celebrate that system with your superheroes. They celebrate that system with your documentaries, your History Channel, your David Attenboroughs that are treated as gods and kings because they've shared so much important information about the world with us, with the masses for so long. He's been speaking and teaching people since the 50s and 60s. And how could you not believe such a believable, gentle human being like that? How could he be lying to us? He's like the grandfather of the world. And David Attenborough, when he sits in front of that camera and he looks at you deeply into your eyes and tells you, this is the universe. Or Morgan Freeman, who gets on there and tells you about God and how the universe was formed and black holes and all the other garbage that they want to sell out there. They get people who have this artificial sense of wisdom, this sense of elderly intelligence that you're supposed to follow just because they're elder, and they appear intelligent because they're on an intelligent platform. It's smoke and mirrors. It's all illusions. Even the people with their best intentions, if they don't know what the hell's going on at the deepest level, they can be in the middle of speaking that information and won't even know. They won't even know their bullshit. So they just have to keep finding people who get up to that point. They have to keep finding Morgan Freemans. They have to keep finding David Attenboroughs, who are only going to look so far. Especially in the older generation. They're not going to look any further than they build up that whole atmosphere of being an intellectual god, because not only do you know the information to some degree, Morgan Freeman is not an astrophysicist, but to speak that information, you're going to learn a fair amount of that information just from narrating and being a part of these programs. So whether they feel that way or not, because they could just be regurgitating, reading off of teleprompter or whatever it is, they could be doing that. Whether they do that or not, whether they know it or not, doesn't matter, because the way it's programmed, the way it's installed into the masses of people, that's what matters. And how it's installed into the people is in this way that sees them as gods, sees them as the intellectual authorities of the universe. If we're the only intelligent beings in the universe, and these are the most intelligent beings who speak about the universe, then they're, in a sense, speaking from a godly perspective. The institutions become God when they unveil this information. This is why they keep certain information, certain perspectives so secret, because it maintains that sense of we're over here, we're separate from you over there, we're in the know. You're on a need to know basis, and you're so childish, you're so needing our protection that we don't need to tell you shit, because your savage nature cannot live on its own without our authority. So we will only tell you what we say is important enough for you to know. So the withholding of alien extraterrestrial information is not just to maintain the universe as they say it should be seen and experienced. It's also to maintain the ability for you to not think for yourself, to only go so far. Any further than that, and you'll start to question too much of the systems that they have generated for you to stay far away from. So, like I said earlier, the ability to think for yourself, or for the masses to think for themselves, back in the day, it was easy to control because they only had the newspaper, the encyclopedias, the books, the school systems, and the radio. Back then, the TV wasn't even on. So those sources of information were very controlled, limited. Not everybody had a radio. Not everybody cared about the newspaper or even looked at the newspaper. Not everybody had access to the education system or encyclopedias. And beyond that, you also had to want to research this information. And when you're so consumed with surviving, just surviving in this system, you don't have the time or the energy or the inclination to research that information. So people's entire lives will go on without questioning the authority of the very universe that they're living in, because they have to survive. They have to provide for their family. They have to do this, and this. By the time they're done with all that, it's time for them to go. Then you move on to the next generation. And then the next generation does the same thing. This is the cycle that we're caught up in. This is why your survival, this is why your limiting of your history, the keeping down of a certain amount of people because they represent an intelligence. The keeping down, how racism fits into this is because they're holding back your ability to realize how intelligent you actually are. Just by allowing us to know our history, to know what our ancestors achieved, just that alone is enough to empower the masses, or even those individuals who research that information. It's enough to empower them to immediately start thinking for themselves, because it discredits their systems. The evolved people of the universe, not only of this earth, but of the universe. They have to destroy your history to make you fully believe into their current version of reality. This is how history and your ancestors fit into the mainstream illusions of space and the heliocentric universe, because they have to get you thinking about the world, about the universe, only from a certain point. So your history starts in 1492. Your universe starts with Galileo, with Copernicus, with Newton, with Einstein, with Carl Sagan, with Bill Nye, and Neil deGrasse Tyson, and Michio Kaku, and Ray Kurzweil, on into transhumanism. It starts back then, and it goes into the next program. Any further back than that will be a threat, because you will start to unravel the illusions that that group of people where it started want to make you believe. They don't want you to see the cosmology of your ancestors. They don't want you to see the sciences of your ancestors. So they discredit all of your buildings. They discredit all of your cosmology. They discredit all of your science. They call you savage. They destroy all your buildings. And the stuff that they haven't destroyed, they'll say something like, oh, well, we don't know what it is. But we're the smartest people in the world, so it doesn't matter if we don't know what that is. We know about black holes in the universe, bitch. Why the fuck do we need to know about Machu Picchu and the Great Pyramids and all these other sacred sites around the world? Why do we need to know about that? We have the numbers, the science for the fucking black hole that's closest to us. Did they have that? No, they didn't. So they're using narcissistic tactics to control the masses. And then the individuals themselves become narcissists and start to narcissistically control themselves because they've installed that system of authority into their mindset. They say, no, the best of the best of the best starts at here. 1492, Copernicus, Newton, Einstein, Galileo. This is where it all starts. Why am I going to think or believe anything else? Those people must be crazy, stupid, conspiracy theorists. That's how they have labeled you. Calling you a savage, another word for a savage is stupid. So what do they call you today when you talk about a not heliocentric universe? They call you stupid. They laugh at you. They ridicule you. They ad hominem attack you. Anybody, family members, your closest friends, your very family members will laugh at you by design. Because not only do they believe that, but not only do they believe what this system wants them to believe in, and that's their reality, but they have a desire, they have a need. They want to believe what this system has for the future. They need it. They want it so fucking bad that they will not allow themselves to think for themselves. So they're not only selling you the present moment, the how you see the world that you live in. They not only control the history, the world that you came from, the ancestors that lived this storyline before you even got here. They're not only controlling that and this, but they're controlling where you're going, the future. And this is where this alien invasion, alien extraterrestrial technology, disclosure, this is where all this stuff fits in. And this is why in the New Age community, they still believe in that system and have that desire. They have that want because it's part of that program. They mind controlled themselves. They've bought into the future because they haven't done the work of unveiling the past. They've only bought in to a new age present moment. They haven't done the work of unveiling the history and removing the credibility of this system. So this is why people in the New Age community can very much seem so smart, seem on the right page, be very technically aware, be very professional and intelligent in reference to their scope, what they do. But it can only go so far because they haven't really dove into the foundation of where that work sits on. They haven't gone into the history. They haven't gone into really allowing themselves to think for themselves. So they're buying into, at most, a third, less than a third of their reality because they have an empty box of information with their history. They have a manipulated version of their present moment by buying into all the nonsense that comes through those systems, those communities. And they have a completely empty and falsified version of the future that they're hoping to come to be, that they're hoping to manifest into their reality. So the only thing they really have is what they have chosen to do in their present moment for their work, for their job, whatever, energy healing, whatever it is. And that's real. That's real. So that's pretty much the only thing that people in the new age have, which is enough, and is why it's so attractive for people who leave nothing. They leave a world of 3/3 past, present, and the future empty. They don't know where the fuck they came from. They don't know who the fuck they are right now, and they don't have any fucking idea where they're going in the future. So they go to the new age community, and these people have a false version of the future, a manipulated half version of the past, but they have somewhat of a solid version of the present moment with what they're using, what they do with their energies, with themselves, with their body, with their consciousness, with all that. So that little bit of grasp that they have on reality is the nugget. It's a real golden, it's a diamond crusted nugget that people are just like, oh my God, I need this. It's a light in a dark, dark room. People have been living in darkness for their entire lives. And that little gem that people provide them is a saving grace to their entire life. And people will dive into that community, into that mindset, and become entirely different people and live entirely different lives from that one little tiny little light. And this is what the system, the mainstream system, does, because it knows this is how humans react. They respond to emptiness, to nothing. So unveiling to the masses of people the alien extraterrestrial disclosure and whatever else they want to reveal to the masses, the artificial shit with the moon landing, sending spaceships to Mars and doing whatever it is that they're doing, the transhumanism, the CERN program, colliding particles. It's all of the information is on a need to know basis. So they just tell you the story that they want you to believe because people buy into the story, and they create another version of themselves. They create this evolved version of humanity living through them. They're a representative of humanity evolving into the future. And they don't have to do anything because the system does everything for them. All they have to do is comply, obey, and follow along with the storyline that the system tells them to believe in. Once they got people in that space, they don't have to do much. They just have to tell the story. People are going to do the rest of the work on themselves. They're going to force their kids to go to an institution to learn about those same systems. They're going to want them to go there because it keeps a separation between the child and the parent, in a sense of an authoritarian ruling, which is a different style of parenting than our ancestors had. So this goes into the very nature of how you raise your children, because that's what raises the next generation of believers. So when it comes down to it, when they become adults, they have a choice between believing you, if you're now coming into this information, or believing the system that you told them to be a part of for their entire lives. They have spent, we'll say 13 years, from kindergarten to a senior in high school. They spent their entire lives learning what you told them to learn. And they get to that point and you tell them, oh, it's all bullshit. They're going to think, what? What are you talking about? It's absurd. So who's going to fall in that moment? It's not going to be them. It's going to be you. You're crazy. You're the crazy one. Because we have an entire institution. We have a military. We have the superpower of the world. We got Hollywood. We got superheroes. We have everyone telling us this is how it is. And you want to say this is not how it is? Something's wrong with you. And that's when they got your children. That's when they got you. So systems like Hollywood, the institutional systems like public education, the university system, your documentaries, your history channel, all of these systems are designed to maintain and evolve a storyline. Space Force is no different than this. And coming from this perspective of being in the military for 7 years, having gotten out and explored all of the nonsense from the false flags up until the political manipulation and so on and so forth, seeing that they are officially activating Space Force as a military branch, because it didn't start off like that. It just started off as some people thought it was a joke. But now it's officially a U.S. military branch, a part of the Department of Defense. This is how far it goes. It's all to make people believe in the bigger storyline, obviously. And it confirms for me even more so that this system is, before it moves anywhere else, it's going to move into the alien extraterrestrial disclosure storyline before it does anything else. So they're going to activate Project Bluebeam. They're going to activate probably some unveiling of the extraterrestrial back engineered technology that they've been hiding in Area 51 to create this something to look forward to mindset in the masses of people. Because you know that when they say these beings have this kind of technology, they're not just going to sit there like dummies and say, well, we just have Spirit Airlines and tanks and shit. They're not going to say that. They're going to say, okay, well, yes, they do have that information. They do have that technology, but we have reverse engineered it since the 50s, and now we have this. And some of the UAPs that you've been seeing in the sky are actually ours, but since it's been classified, we couldn't tell you. But now we can tell you because there's so much going on out there, and you need to know this. And we're your friends. We're on your side. You need to be with us. So now you have something else to look up to, look forward to, the future, bringing in those alien technologies into your everyday life, the same way NASA brought in these everyday technologies into your life. This is why they attach all of these technological breakthroughs to NASA. So they're just going to repeat the same story. Now they're going to attach all of these technological breakthroughs to the secret space programs that have been existing in society for so long. Now they can buy another 30, 40, 50 years of manipulation, of mind control, and selling you of something that you want, that you need, that you desire. And they don't have to show you anything because they could still hide everything. They're only going to show you as much as they need to show you for you to believe in the story that they need you to believe in. And as long as they maintain control over the entire storyline, they can maintain a control over your ability to think for yourself. Because you know, when they do start unveiling, disclosing information, whatever they're doing, because they're already doing it right now. When they start doing that, you know for sure they're not going to tell you the whole story. And that is what keeps people in line. Because that's what keeps people from thinking for themselves. But with this, they know people are going to start to research and think for themselves up to a certain degree. So they're going to make it a big stage performance. They're going to make it a big Hollywood backed, science backed, media backed, university system backed program that is going to change the way you see technology, change the way you see humanity. And they're going to manipulate you to come into this, we're all human, we're all one, because, like Democrats and Republicans in comparison to, we're all human, we're all one because we're not like these beings, those beings who some are good, but some are bad. And we need to protect our people from the bad ones. Once that story gets put out there, they can sell you more technology. They can sell you more perspectives of the universe. They can sell you more illusions around, more sciences can be put into the university system. They can expand the university system. They can blow it up to this huge thing bigger than what it already is. They can make more documentaries and put them on Netflix and Amazon and all these other programs that they can do to make you believe in it. They have the platforms already. People don't learn from schools anymore. They learn from documentaries from Netflix and Amazon. That's where they get their information from. They get their information from social media. And the system has control over all of these. So, the reason for making Space Force a real part of the Department of Defense is to add to the ability, the story, the ability for you to not think for yourself. To put a security guard in the front door of the club of critical thought. They have a club called Critical Thought. And the bouncer, the security guard for that critical thought, is the Space Force. Is this new program that they're bringing into your reality to keep you from going any further than when they tell you to go.